Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinars hosted by EDB. My name is Monica, and I am a marketing manager here at EDB. I will be your host for today's webinar, New Enhancement for Security and Usability in EDB 13. I am joined by Michael Wheeler, sales engineer here at EDB. Before we start, I just want to go through a few housekeeping items. This presentation is being recorded. We will be sharing the recording along with the slides after the broadcast. The lines are currently muted. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the questions panel at the bottom of your screen. Today's session is scheduled for 1 hour. We expect the presentation to last most of our time today, and we will allocate any extra time for Q&A. If we do not have time to address all questions, we will follow up afterwards with any attendee whose question was not answered. And now, without any further ado, Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Monica. I'm Michael Wheeler, sales engineer from EDB. Today's agenda looks like this. So I'll go into a short introduction as to who is EDB and what we do. Then talk about what we offer and why your business needs these things. Then a list of key takeaways from the new features in EDB 13. And then database and tools, news. I'll try to go into a bit more detail on some of the things mentioned. And then the discussion on the migration portal, what is new in migration portal, and finally changes to platform support. And then at the end, hopefully we'll have time for some Q&A and there are some resources there as well to mention those. All right, so EDB is the largest Postgres company globally now. Unless you've been living under a rock, you have probably seen that we acquired the second quadrant in September 2020. And we have been working very hard to merge the product lines from second quadrant and EDB, and are very close to announcing that result. Acquiring second quadrant also meant that we now have a lot of more customers, and for us techies, myself included, also a lot more experts in EDB now. A lot of fantastic colleagues have joined this company. And that, of course, means that we can now innovate even more than we did before and really positioned as being a market leader. We have been database fanatics since 2004, and we have been on the Magic Quadrant in the past 7 years, which shows that we are a leader in open source, because if you look at this slide, you'll see that there are none other on this slide that are open source providers. All the other companies are significantly larger than us as well, so we're very proud to be on this. If you look at the bottom of the slide, you find that both EDB and second quadrant have been committing to Postgres Community Edition since their inception. For second quadrant, they have done a lot of work in replication, hot standbys, in logical replication, transaction control, and so on. And their work in replication, both in streaming replication and logical replication, has led to a very, very exciting product called BDR, bidirectional replication, which I hope to talk more about in some later presentations. So more SQL, so more Postgres experts. We now have 300 SQL experts. 26 of those are community contributors. and committers. And we have people that, if you work with Postgres, you'll know people like Michael Stonebreaker, who's basically the father of Postgres, the inventor of object-oriented relational databases 25 years ago. There's Monjam, who was co-founder of Postgres, the community, and a very large contributor to Postgres today as well. Peter Eisentraut and Rob Haas, who are development leaders in Postgres community. And Simon Ricks, the former CEO of Second Quadrant and a huge contributor as well to Postgres itself. Okay, so what do you need? Why you need this, and what is it we do? Well, if you download Postgres itself and start it up, you have a database, and that's a fantastic thing. It's a wonderful thing. It's a stable database as well, so you will get a very high level of availability just by running Postgres itself. But it is, quote unquote, just a database. And for developers, that's all you need. You just need a database that responds to your queries and you can use for your development efforts, and that's just fine. But once it gets into production, you tend to need a little bit more than that, because the applications that are running need to be run with a higher availability than what can be manually achieved. If the DBA who's running one database needs to constantly monitor that database, if he or she is running more than one database, then things start to get a little more interesting, as I usually call it. Because then you need to switch between all the databases to check whether they're okay and so on. What you need is exception-based management. You need backup. You need some kind of automated failover between your databases, your primary database and your standby. You need other tools to ensure that your database runs at enterprise level, and that's where EDB comes in. These are the tools that we provide. We provide, for instance, down here, Postgres Enterprise Manager for your monitoring needs. It implements exception-based monitoring, so you can get alerts if you're running out of table space, you're running out of disk space, one of your databases is running, one of your database servers is running at full capacity, and you need to do something about it. We provide backup tools for you. We provide Failover Manager, which monitors your databases and automates failover to a standby, and ensures that also ensures that you don't get split brain syndrome if you were to mistakenly restart the failed database. Of course, we have connectors to our databases. And a thing here now that we're talking about the security SQL Protect tool that we don't talk about too much, but I wanted to mention it since security is part of the title here. SQL Protect is a program that inserts itself between in the communication between the application and the database. And you can set it into a learning mode where it learns what the normal communication looks like, and then you can set it into a restricted mode. And in that restricted mode, it will recognize things that are outside the common pattern and stop the communication, which means that you now have things like SQL injection attacks and things like that. Apart from that, we also have migration tools, because migration tools are great to move your workload from, for instance, Oracle SQL Server or somewhere else into Postgres itself. Below here is a full list. I won't go through it. There are a lot of tools. We support two databases. The first one is Community Edition, Postgres Community Edition, the one you get from postgres.org. You can also get it from us. And the second one is Advanced Server, which I'll go into detail on a little later. Apart from that, we are a full service company, so we have 24/7 technical support. We provide remote DBA services both for cloud and for on-premise. And we provide technical account management as well for your advisory needs. And we have a full list of services as well for professional services. So Postgres Advanced Server is built on top of Postgres Community Edition. Primarily, it is used for Oracle migrations, but also used in financial institutions because it adds several layers of security that are not available in Postgres Community Edition. So starting from the bottom here, we have PostgreSQL itself, and we add our features on top of that, and we do that for every major release. So everything that's a feature in Postgres Community Edition is part of Advanced Server. This is not a branch. It's for those of you who do development, it is a V-base, not a branch. So we add Oracle compatibility on top here, which basically means that this database now understands Oracle data types. It understands PL/SQL. You can add triggers, you can add packages, and so on, which allows you to move a database that has been running for some time on Oracle and has then been where the code has been stored inside the database. That code is movable to Postgres. Apart from that, we add some performance features, including optimizer hints, which is a big thing in Oracle. So our database supports that. And we have, of course, system weight diagnostics, some database administration features and developer features, which comes from the Oracle compatibility, is the ability to use Oracle prepackaged functions, the DBMS packages, the util packages, as well as for the DBAs, the all user and DBA views. And then, of course, add to that security at the top here, password policy management. And yes, we know passwords are not supposed to be stored in the database, but some customers actually still do this. And we want to support that. And for that, we have added on request policy management so that you can set up rules for your passwords so that when people change them, we can set up these approved, not approved. Okay. We add session tag auditing, which allows you to audit everything that's going on in the database. And the tag part of this is that if the application sets a specific tag, then that tag is transferred to the audit. That could, for instance, be the actual user who's logged into the database, allowing you or logged into the application itself. So that now you can actually follow everything that's going on. Data redaction is part of the database, SQL injection protection, as I've already discussed, and of course, obfuscation of PL/SQL. But looking at the tools, Postgres Enterprise Manager is this single pane of glass that allows you to monitor all your databases. Monitoring one database is in itself difficult enough because you have to stare at a screen the entire day to make sure that everything is running. You don't want to do that. Monitoring 200 databases or even 1,000 databases is somewhat of a challenge unless you have a tool to do it. And this is where things like Postgres Enterprise Manager comes in, giving you this exception-based monitoring. We have in this database more than 200 built-in alerts. And you can add to that list yourself. You can add probes that collects specific data for your needs using either SQL or a batch script for that matter. And adds to the database and add alerts on top of that. Apart from that, you can also add dashboards. We have dashboards ourselves, but you can also add dashboards yourself and have those running on a screen if you need. Failover Manager is the tool that monitors your databases, and once it determines that the database is down and you can't connect to it anymore, it will automatically do a failover to the standby. Works by having agents running on both, in this case both, but all databases in the failover cluster, and those are then in communication with each other using JGroups. It also, as I mentioned before, and as it says here, avoids split brain, because it ensures that the primary, once it has been detected to be down, it changes the configuration in such a way that the database cannot start without manual intervention. And that's what you want, because the primary has been moved from here to here. And I'm not showing my cursor, sorry. Primary has been moved from here to here. And so this is now a new standby. And so you don't want this to start up and think that it's a primary database, because then you have two of them, and that's a problem. Backup and recovery tool is just one of the tools for backup available. Of course, there are others. This is our tool, and it uses this centralized repository for backup. Ensures that all the WAL files that you need are available. And it also monitors, so it ensures that when you delete a backup, which can be done automatically through policies, it removes the WAL files that it no longer needs, because those WAL files are not used in any of the backups currently in the repository. So you can set up these policies saying that for database A, I want 2 full backups. For database B, I want 3 full backups, and so on. And by running the management part of BART, it will automatically remove the backups that are no longer needed. Migration Portal is a tool that's available on the web. It was launched in 2018, July 2018, and it will assess Oracle schemas to download a script using, and that script will use DBMS Meta to extract DDL information from the Oracle database and create a script that you then upload, or create a file that you upload to Migration Portal, and then it will perform a migration to Advanced Server. It has, since 2018, now we've come to more than 11 million DDL objects, and we are seeing a 92% compatibility between Oracle and EBAS, as it's called, EDB Advanced Server. We use Migration Portal a lot to inform us on what needs to be added to Advanced Server to continuously improve this compatibility. So when our product managers can see that certain features are used and are needed in Advanced Server, then that informs them and adds, and they'll add those features to the list of features to be added to Advanced Server. So to cap this off, the database, Postgres itself is a great database, but you need tools to run at a higher level of availability. Manually, you might get, if you're really, really fast, you'll get 99.5. More realistically, you'll get 99% high availability, 99% availability on your database, and that is provided that things reporting the server, such as reporting the database server, such as the operating system or disk controllers and so on, do not fail during the night. Because then your DBA is going to be asleep. And that's where our tooling comes in to fail over the database, to monitor the databases if you have more than one, and so on, to ensure that you are providing this high availability that your business needs. So key takeaways from EDB 13 releases on usability. Enterprise managers, as we've seen, is being used. And in the beginning, the databases were small in size, but they have grown now to more than 4,000 objects in one schema. So finding the things that you need has become a bit more difficult. So if you want to find a specific object, so what we've done is we've added a search field for objects, so you can find it without navigating to it, which makes life a lot easier for the DBAs. We've integrated backup and recovery, so you can start a backup from PEM itself. And we've also integrated EFM, EDB Failover Manager, so that you can actually perform a switch from PEM itself. Also added VCAC level 2 certification, which means that for visually impaired, they can use screen readers and so on to assist them in using them. In security, we've already added SCRAM authentication some time ago, and now we've added channel binding to that to protect the communication from man-in-the-middle attacks. We've upgraded the minimum TLS versions to ensure that we clamp down on security, and we've added certificate-based authentication for EDB Loader and for the foreign data wrappers. Foreign data wrappers would usually use passwords, but now with certificate-based authentication, passwords are no longer needed. Compatibility in EPAS is a continuing effort, and it comes in many things. For instance, in additional features in Advanced Server itself, but also in automated handlers, as they're called in Migration Portal, things that automatically rewrite DDL from Oracle syntax to a version that is compatible and very so close to the Oracle syntax, but compatible with EPAS itself. The compatibility inside the database, we have improved our compound trigger handling. And for DBMS SQL, we found that define column long and column value long has been used quite a lot. So we've added that feature as well. And the very exciting thing is that we've added partition syntax compatible with Oracle for list and hash partitions. So what's new in the database? Let's go into this. And as I said earlier, EPAS itself is built on top of Postgres. So everything that's new in Postgres is also new in EPAS. So looking at the contributions from second quadrant and from EDB, on the administrative side, tools like PG Cat Check has an added feature that allows it to check for files from all relations. We've added PG verified backup, which checks your backup and ensures that you have everything that you need. On the performance side, we have added incremental sorting, which allows you to use a partial index. Usually, earlier a partial index would not be used if you were to use, for instance, an index on column A and B, and you were sorting on A, B, C, then that index wouldn't be used. That has now been changed so that it will just use that index and then sort incrementally. There are improved plans for extended statistics. Partition pruning was added in or improved a lot in version 12, and now in 13 it's become even more improved. And you are now able to join directly on partition tables. And we have added who has added? I have no notes on whether this was second quadrant or EDB. Parallel vacuuming of indexes has been added as well. On the developer side, we now handle nulls in JSONB. And we have allowed partition tables with before triggers to be used in logical replication. There's also a normalizing of Unicode strings added as well. On security side, the form data wrappers that's already mentioned, and client certificates as well. And an extra feature is that our memory, including or containing sensitive information, is erased before it is released. So parallel vacuuming of indexes allows you to add workers to vacuuming of your indexes. And as you can see here, there is here's a comparison of the speed on which this completes, and then as we add more workers, then of course the time diminishes. It's a nice feature for if you get behind on vacuuming of indexes and allowing, and you do have CPU available, then using this feature will make things go a lot faster. There is a blog post on this, or a tutorial actually on this, so you can get the PDF of the presentation afterwards, so you can see this. On PGCAT check, what has been done is essentially to perform this check is to do a select star from a table limit 0, which will check whether or not there actually is a file related to the table, or a relation as it's called in Postgres. The reason for doing this is that, especially when it comes to partition tables, then data is spread across a lot of different disk drives and so on, and then manual error is still a factor. So if someone by mistake has removed a folder that they shouldn't have removed, then you will get this error when the application tries to do something. Could not open file execs. But running pgcat check, you will now be able to avoid this by using select from relations, so that it ensures that the files are available. Not all of them, but at least one file is available to serve the relation. So for PBA productivity, the automatic list partitioning and hash partitioning, I actually have a better slide later as well. You're now able to automatically create new partitions. So actually go to this one instead. creating a partition or a table with list partitioning here for India and USA, and then adding data which does not conform with the current partitions, then that partition will automatically be created. This is an advanced server functionality. In Postgres, you will get an error saying that the partition does not exist, which means that for these kind of partitions, the DBA would usually have to chase the partitions and ensure that partitions have been created before the application tries to insert data that doesn't conform to the current number of partitions. And with this, that has been solved. As well as for hash partitioning, here we are creating 4 partitions, but you can create as many as you want. The most interesting thing about this is that if you, for instance, partition on top level using hash and then sub-partition with lists, then this also works. The automatic partitioning will kick in, and you will get first your top partitions, and then automatically manage the sub-partitioning at lower levels. So another thing is a small tool called EDB Loader, a very important tool actually for ETL workloads, for data warehousing and so on, but also in normal production. Seen a lot of organizations use EDB Loader. It is a tool that works in the same way and understands the same syntax as Oracle Loader. And now we've added a feature that's also available in Oracle Loader itself, which is that duplicate rows don't abort the load itself, but those rows are now being outputted to the BART file, and that way your loads don't stop. And yes, the configuration parameter down here. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. This is an enhancement of the way that bulk loading is being logged, and in the audit log, this will allow you to, by setting this EDB log every bulk value to false, your audit logs will no longer contain all the SQL being performed on a bulk insert or bulk update. It will only contain one SQL and then the number of rows being processed. With this value set true, then all statements are being logged as usual. So for Oracle compatibility, again, this is a continuing effort to ensure that migrating from Oracle to Postgres is as easy as possible and requires as little work as possible. We have added using index as a syntax so that you can specify custom indexes while creating or altering a table. And you can now also use the parallel, no parallel option. EDB structured procedural language, which basically means PL SQL. As already mentioned, defined column long and column value long has been added, as well as last error position, which shows you where error happened. We've added compound triggers were added in version 12, I think. But we now have when clause and all new values and statement. All of these things have been are being added as part of the input received from Migration Portal, so that we continuously improve the compatibility. We also allow now for forward declaration inside bodies. And of course, some statistical functions have been added: stats mode, median, to timestamp console has been added as well. And for UGL HTTP, we saw a lot of use of end of body exception, so that has been added as well to the database. So improve security on Advanced Server, adding AES 192 and 256 bits encryption algorithms. And the important thing here, which is that in EDB audit, you can audit everything that goes on in the database, but for super users, in a super user session, you're actually able to lower the audit level, which makes sense in some cases. But now the audit actually contains that command so that you can see that it's happening, that someone has logged in as a super user and changed the audit level, so that you can follow up on if that was supposed to happen and why. So looking at tools, so Postgres Enterprise Manager now has a graphical query plan analyzer, which is a great addition to get a visual representation of how a query is being performed. It adds schema diff, which allows you to compare two schemas. I have a nice picture of that later on. SNMP version 3 support has been added. Enhanced performance diagnostics allows you to go back in time and look at what was going on. I have a slide of that. We have this enhanced integration of backup and Failover Manager, the DCAG guideline certification as well. And we now have the ability to monitor AWS RDS and Postgres running on AWS EC2. So schema diff is a way to compare two schemas with each other, and then get, as you can be seen here, this is source and target, and then here is difference, or actually the SQL needed to bring those two into sync with each other. This is a great way if you, for instance, want to add database version management, or database schema version management, tools like Liquidbase and Flyaway or other tools like that, and add that to your development, then getting all schemas representing the same application into sync is the first start to doing that. And from then on, you can use version management. This is one way of using this tool. Another is to manually do this on whatever procedures that you need to do. Improved diagnostics. Performance diagnostics allows the DBA to answer this dreaded question when the product manager comes for a product, arrives in at the DBA office and says, hey, on Friday at 2 o'clock, the database was running very slow. Why did you do that? Now you can actually answer that question by going back in time and looking at what was actually going on in the database at that time. What was the database waiting for? What was the SQLs waiting for? What SQLs were running, and so on? Which users were logged in, and all that information is available to you. And with that, you can answer that question and say, hey, we were running this was being overloaded or whatever, and then you can actually start to maybe improve the performance and then avoid those kind of bottlenecks in the future. Another thing that I failed to mention on the slide for PEM new features is that PEM now supports webhooks. So instead of polling PEM for information, for alerts and so on continuously, then you can actually just set up PEM now to use webhooks and use a REST interface to send alerts to other monitoring tools that supports this. Simple version is something like Slack, for instance, where you can send all alerts to a specific channel. Other examples could be, I believe, ServiceNow actually has a REST interface, so you can now shift your PEM alerts on a specific level to ServiceNow to get that full overview. For EFM and BART, EFM now stores the database passwords with a stronger encryption, secure hash, 512-bit encryption. It also encrypts the communication between the agents monitoring the databases. And it also now it has been improved. Failover has been improved so that databases are no longer rebooted as part of the election process. For backup and recovery, FIPS 142 is standard for disabling. We've disabled checksums, checksum verification, and so on, which allows you to perform backups and to run this in the US government space. Migration Portal. As mentioned, Migration Portal is available freely on our website, and it is used to get this early idea as to how compatible would this schema or these schemas be compared to migrating them from Oracle to EPAS. This is a continuous effort for us to improve the compatibility, and Migration Portal is sort of the front line of doing that. So in this case, we now have two schemas. There's an easier path to install and install EPAS itself. We have improved the performance of the Migration Portal so that instead of 5 or 6 minutes on those very large schemas or uploads, we now get an answer very much faster. And as mentioned, we have now assessed more than 11 million PDL objects. And we're currently sitting at a 92% compatibility, which is very good. I remember in the beginning, we were sitting at 80% when we started out with Migration Portal. The first numbers we got was an average of roughly 80% or something like that. So having 92 now means that we've now effectively halved the effort of moving a database from Oracle to Postgres. So on platforms, news on platforms, we support Red Hat Enterprise Linux as well as CentOS and Oracle Enterprise Linux on versions 7 and 8. A thing to note though is that as Red Hat has announced that CentOS 8 is going end of life in a lot sooner than expected in December this year. So if you're running on CentOS 8, this is something that you need to be aware of. We will continue to support CentOS 8, and we will also monitor the progress of CentOS, and we will provide more information on this in third quarter of 2021 this year. a thing to note is also that CentOS 7 has continuous support until June 2024 with maintenance updates. This is directly from the CentOS website. Apart from the Red Hat line, we also support Debian and version 9 and 10, Ubuntu 18 and 20. And on PowerPC, of course, version 8 and 9 of PowerPC, Little Endian, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Windows Server 16 and 19 are still supported. We have desupported Windows version 12, 2012, as well as CentOS 6, which has gone end of life end of last year. So I have a couple of links, on the next slide, but I also wanted to ensure that people knew that if you go to our website, enterprisedb.com or edbpostgres.com, which will link you here as well, and click on resources, you will find our documentation, all our blogs, webinars, tutorials, white papers, and so on. And so just wanted to mention that. And here, some final resources. There's a blog on the new enhancements, mentioning some of the things that have been part of this presentation, as well as downloads pages. We have white papers, which includes tuning guides for both Windows and for Linux. We have this strategic partnership with Talis, which provides added security in terms of encryption, disk encryption on Postgres on running databases. There will be, I know that we are adding the foundation encryption to Postgres in later versions, but I also know that it's probably not going to be part of Postgres version 14. So if this is something that you need, please consider having a look at this, because this is what you need for your encryption. And migration portal is here, and a very interesting thing is this down here, deployment automation, which is Ansible scripts for deploying Postgres, and many of the tools that have been mentioned in this presentation as well. So, and now, Monica, were there any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Michael, for this presentation. Well, at the moment, we do not have any questions. If any of our attendees have any questions right now, they are more than free to submit them. In any case, we will be going to share the presentation slides and the recording later today. We have a question. BART, is it going to disappear?
Well, yes and no. BART will be supported for a good amount of time, I believe. I think it's at least 18 months from now. But BART will not receive any upgrades, any new features, and so on. There will be fixes and so on to BART naturally. The new strategic tool for backup is Barman in EDB. We've decided to go with that instead. And it is a very good tool, so look at it. Please look at it. It's a very good tool.
And that actually was a follow-up question to the first one, and it will be replaced by Barman. So I think you just responded to that one as well.
Yes, and another tool that, sorry, I'll just add to that another tool that will be supported for backup will be PG Backrest. EDB is part of the community supporting and maintaining PG Backrest. So PG Backrest will also be part of our 24/7. Excellent, Monica, go ahead.
Okay, great. So next question, what's the roadmap for TDE, please?
That's a very good question. I know that there is a group of people working on this with Bruce Monjam as part of that group. And that's about all I know. I know that they're working on it. I know that what we've been hearing is that it is probably not going to make it to Postgres 14. But we'll see. There is, if you look for Postgres 14 PDE, if you search for that on Google, I think you'll find their homepage with the current state. I haven't looked in a couple of days actually, so. But I know it's in the works.
Okay, so we do not have any more questions at the moment. So again, thank you very much, Michael, for this presentation, and thanks to everyone for joining us. Look out for your for an email with the recording of this session and the slides. We hope to see you in our next webinars. Please check out the website to see what's coming. And well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, everyone. And thanks again for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.